Welcome everyone to LaunchPad, the Jamf Admin Meetup, hosted by Rocketman. Great to see everybody here. We usually do these the first Friday of every month. So if it's your first time, welcome. Love to have you here. And if it's your 100th time, thanks that you guys keep coming back. We love to see that. For this session, we'll be going over the new Jamf release. We're lucky enough to have Matt Woodruff from Jamf, who's going to be joining our team as we talk about some of the newest features that has come with Jamf 11.13.
Getting into it, today we're going to talk about Jamf Pro 11.3, and we've got myself, Matt Woodruff, and Hugo Immediato to talk about this. So we got a lot of exciting features in 11.3, account-driven device enrollment for computer, viewing lapsed passwords in the Jamf Pro interface, and capabilities with the all-new Apple Vision Pro. Oh, shoot, actually, no, we're talking about 11.13 today. So, yeah, we messed up with our communication, which I realized was my fault because if I have 3 ones in a row, I just don't even notice. So yeah, it's 11.13. Not 11.3 if you saw our initial email and stuff like that. We are talking about the latest release, not the one from February of last year. So the cool features that we're going to talk about is Admin SSO, Self-Service Plus, compliance benchmarks, device compliance for shared devices, outbound communication mode for ADCS 2.0, and telemetry version 2 for Jamf Protect. So like I said, it's going to be myself, Hugo Mediato from Rocketman, along with Matt Woodruff, who is, Matt, what is your title again?
It changes about every 6 months. We'll just use the lead security solutions architect at Jamf.
Yeah. Matt Woodruff is just my go-to when I need someone to talk about nerdy things at Jamf that I don't know about. He is a wealth of knowledge, especially on the security side.
Can't we just go with Jamf God?
Probably, yeah. I think you could put that as your official title.
I think so too.
So to start off, I want to talk about Admin SSO, which is one that I'm very excited about because there's a lot of organizations we work with as an MSP that don't have an identity provider yet, and being able to give them some type of secure login to their Jamf Pro portal is super important. So let's talk about some caveats first off. Now, this is a new feature, so things may be changing, but it's only available right now for cloud-hosted environments. It requires a Jamf ID or SSO setup in your Jamf account. And it's only available for the Jamf Pro login. So it's not available for self-service or user-initiated enrollment or automated enrollment or any of those other methods, just for administrators to get into Jamf Pro. Now you can set this up in conjunction with SAML, so you can still use your old identity provider for those other means of logging in to self-service and user-initiated enrollment and all that stuff, and just use the Jamf ID for the Jamf Pro login. And this is another thing that's a good caveat to point out. You cannot use both SAML and Jamf ID login for the Jamf Pro login at the same time. So you can only do one or the other. The reason I don't love this is because a lot of times we'll do health checks for company servers and we get access to their server. And it's hard to get approval to get an identity provider account to get read access to a server. And people often don't want to give us direct access to the server without any type of multi-factor authentication. And this is a great way to get a multi-factor authentication in place, but you can't do both at once at this point. So that's a feature request I will be putting for this specifically, because that would be really cool if we could do those both. But let's take a look at what this looks like. So first off, how do we set this up in Jamf Pro? So we're going to go to single sign-on and then enable SSO authentication if it's not enabled already. And then the first box there is already checked. This is to use the Jamf Pro account. If you want to set up SAML authentication, there's also now another radio box to do that. And then you just have to choose whether you want it to be a username or an email. In this example, I'll use email. And then you just need to set up a Jamf Pro user account with the same username and, in this case, email that you have for your Jamf ID. So my Jamf ID is chris@rocketman.tech. So you can see now if I go to log in, instead of going to the normal login screen, it actually goes for me to have me put in my Jamf ID. And then I'll just log in with my Jamf ID username and password. Now, one thing you may have noticed here is that there was no multi-factor authentication in place. So that you actually have to do on your Jamf ID side. So now I'm going to show you how to set up MFA with your Jamf ID so you can get that two-factor authentication. So if you go to account.jamf.com, and then you have to go to, gotta remember where this is now. It's going to be security, and then enable multi-factor for Jamf. It's going to give you a warning explaining that, like, if you turn this on and then you mess up your MFA, that it's going to create some problems for you. So just be aware of that before you turn on an MFA, which is pretty common. Okay, so click sign into your Jamf ID, type in your name. And now you can set this up with a host of authenticator apps. So I used Okta Verify for mine, but I think you can use any authenticator app, which was kind of cool. And then if you go to log in again, it'll then prompt you for MFA once you enter your password. And then lastly, I want to show you how to use your Jamf ID with SAML. So it's really as easy as just, yeah, so first of all, it doesn't let you do it for self-service, like I said before. So if I go to log in here to self-service, this is just the normal login that's looking for like a Jamf Pro user account or a directory account. So in order to get that SAML login, I have to click that box and then turn on SAML for self-service. And now it's going to prompt us for Okta login because we use Okta internally. And then we get our nice multi-factor authentication. So you already have SSO set up with your identity provider. Why do you care about this? Well, and this is the thing that came out to me when I was looking at the beta specifically. So some Jamf Pro capabilities, such as compliance benchmarks, require that single sign-on be set up and managed in Jamf account. Within Jamf, you can set up enable SSO using a Jamf ID. So this might be required for some features to work within Jamf Pro in the future. I'm sure Matt can talk more about that. But that's something to just keep on the lookout. This might be something that's required more in the future as more features for Jamf Pro come out. And with that, I'll turn it over to Matt to give his thoughts.
Great questions, by the way. Please continue posting them in the chat. It's really nice to see those. And a few names I recognize as well. Good to see you on here. Jamf account. You can start considering that as being a central location where common settings will need to be set for all of your Jamf consoles. So what we're finally doing is bringing Jamf Pro authentication to the same level that you may have had for authenticating into Jamf Protect or the macOS security portal, the Jamf security portal, the Jamf executive threat protection. See, all of those use Jamf account for SSO and granting all of you the capability of either using a Jamf ID for authentication or your corporate cloud identity provider, which, as I've mentioned in chat, is where you get to set up multiple other types of MFA-based factors. So when you start looking at all of that, what I do is highly suggest that you start bringing together, if you can, all of your authentication mechanisms into Jamf account, and it makes it easier to log into each one of the consoles that we have here at Jamf, making hopefully your life easier. But I will also say, think about how we're doing that in that Jamf account being that central location of settings for multiple consoles. We're getting to the point where we want to make sure you're entering settings for a common corporate resource only in one location. That's our goal. And so that would be my suggestion, is go ahead and head that direction. While there's a lot coming in, I've got to go back, head over to the chat and see if I can answer some questions. But outside of that, I've got a lot more thoughts for the upcoming sections. So Chris, I think it's back over to you. Or any question, Chris, that you think I should answer right now?
Yeah, I'm curious about my speculation that this is going to be a required thing for some features within Jamf Pro in order for them to work.
Yeah, so we're at the point now where Jamf is very slowly getting away from some old architecture. And yes, you can actually see on Chris's former slide, there was the compliance benchmark notification, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But compliance benchmark is going to have a hard requirement that you're using the Jamf account SSO-based settings to use that feature. And that has everything to do with how we're doing, our new multi-tenancy type of cloud services with microservices within AWS. And it's setting up a commonality for us to making sure that we're tying together what features you're using to what product you're also using from Jamf. So yes, you are correct. That is our future goal.
With that, we will move on. We'll bring Matt back to the chat so he can work on that. And I'll turn it over to Hugo to talk about Self-Service Plus.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I was just trying to post a disclaimer in the chat real quick. Hi, everyone. I'm Hugo, and I'll be talking about Self-Service Plus today. And so what is Self-Service Plus, right? Well, we all know what self-service is, and Self-Service Plus is simply an evolution of self-service. We've seen a little bit of this stuff rolling out slowly over the past years with macOS onboarding. Now we've got the Jamf Protect integration, as well as a few other things. One of the great things about this is Jamf's moved slowly on this, and they've really been reading into what people want for self-service. And with that being said, it's still in early development, so I don't know how much more features I can share. And we have 1 year still, right? So we're not deprecating this until March 2026. Right now, it's available, but I would wait a little bit before fully rolling it out to your environment. All right, I'm ready for the next slide, Chris. So where do you download this, right? So tying back to the Jamf ID thing, you want to go to account.jamf.com, and under products, you will see Self-Service Plus is available to download. I believe the current version now is 1.1.0. And essentially, you'll just deploy that in a policy to your environment, just like you do any other application. So here's just a preview of what it looks like with Jamf Protect and without Jamf Protect. We got a little glimpse of this during JNUC this year. Not a lot of major changes as far as visuals go, like, catalogs might be in a different spot, but that's about it. Another nice add is bookmarks are within the web view. So if you're familiar with macOS onboarding or Jamf AAD web view, how they've kind of slowly over time integrated a window within the Jamf or the Jamf self-service, you can now actually click the bookmark, and instead of it taking you to a random web browser, it opens it up in self-service, which is really, really nice. And I did want to add a Go Eagles to this slide. Any Philadelphians out there, you'll understand the with or without. And with that, I'll hand it over to Matt to answer any questions or state anything I might have not wanted to state, not knowing if I can state it.
Actually, this is given that Rocketman does a great job of posting this and marketing this to the world. I also know that many of you actually create content for both the world, but also your customer base. One thing that I've learned through this whole process that I would like to advise you all, when referencing Self-Service Plus, please do not use the acronym of SS Plus. It's actually got a really bad reference in Germany. So please use SSP in all of your documentation. When you're shorthanding it to customers, just use SSP, please. So outside of that, I get to move on. Yeah, as he mentioned, one of the biggest things, we've already received feedback. We know this already. No need to hound us, contact support or customer success about the frustration. This is a soft launch. Self-service is a huge front end to end user interaction to a Jamf product. Making a drastic change like this must take time. That's the reason why it is not available when you go to Jamf Pro and go to settings, self-service for macOS. It doesn't install automatically. It's the reason why it's in Jamf account currently, and you have to download the PKG separately and have custom configurations for it. So please understand, we will be slowly introducing this to the world over the next period of Jamf Pro releases. So be cautious with us, test it, make sure you get the feedback in about UI issues or configuration issues that you're having, as we are doing the same internally at Jamf in testing out Self-Service Plus. So please be aware of that. That's the only reference that I would have for you all regarding Self-Service Plus. And anything I'm missing, Hugo?
I don't think so. I do remember a disclaimer about macOS onboarding right now with the current release.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
And other than that, I think you nailed it. Yep.
Good.
Oh, and it's side by side. After you, Dan. I'm sorry, someone was talking.
Is there a way to open Self-Service Plus into the catalog as opposed to the front page that it opens to now?
Sorry, thinking.
In the dashboard, when you want it, you can change the homepage. Yeah. So right now, Dan, it's reading the same permissions that self-service is reading. I think that's kind of the question there, Matt. It's the current self-service pane within your Jamf Pro dashboard right now. There's not a separate self-service plus pane. So whatever you have set for self-service is what you're going to get with self-service plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always going to go to that home pane, right? Like it's shown here.
Yep.
And you want it to default to catalog, Dan?
I'd like to, yes, if it's possible.
I actually don't know. I don't know if there's some custom flag within a configuration profile or an app config that you can push out. Great question. Don't know. Maybe put it up in Mac admin Slack. See if somebody knows.
Yeah, if anyone knows, throw it in the chat. Okay, next up we have compliance benchmarks. And I am going to, okay, I guess, Matt, you want to take this section?
Yeah, so as you all may or may not know, this is another one of the projects that I've been heavily involved with at Jamf, as I'm one of the authors of the Jamf Compliance Editor tool as well. So go ahead, next slide, and let's start diving into Compliance Benchmark. It is a public beta release. We have been in private beta since JNUC with 200 customers. And so we obviously vetted out a lot of various bugs and everything, but it is still a public beta. It will be a public beta for a while. So that even though we announced it in the Jamf Pro 11.13 beta, it does not mean that it obviously came out in 11.13 or 11.14. So just plan for the release to come soon. In case you're not aware, it is a way for you to utilize the deployment, management, and remediation of Compliance Benchmark across your fleet. That's the goal. I'll tell you what some of the current limitations are on the next slide. It is part of the Jamf platform. And the reason why I state platform, it goes back to the phrasing that I was using with Chris just a while ago in the identification that this is a microservice of Jamf. So that's the reason why Jamf account SSO-based authentication is required for this feature to work. Here's the best part that I'm loving about what we're doing with this. It is absolutely based on the macOS Security Compliance Project. Now, one uniqueness that we at Jamf have decided to do in order to help our customers during this journey is that it is not going to be immediately an immediate feed from the GitHub to the customers. Rather, we are actually going to take the GitHub code, validate that everything is actually working in it, and we hope that that's only going to take a couple of hours for us. And then we will release it within Jamf Pro in this feature for all of you. So that's one additional clarifying step in case in the future you're looking for the latest CIS security benchmark for the latest operating system as soon as it's updated. Just give it, we hope, very minimal amount of time, and you'll see it being available while we're doing a scan of the code ourselves, because obviously it's going into our product. Right now, CIS level 1 and 2. Yes, we actually do have a vision. We don't know if we'll execute on it, of getting all of the security benchmarks from the macOS Security Compliance Project for macOS into the release, hopefully GA, but as you will see with this recording, I'm saying hopefully. So that's our intention with this. Yeah, so what's great is you will be able to build one configuration for CIS level 1 that can be scoped to both macOS Sonoma and Sequoia. So that's the good thing, is that you're not having to dictate which operating system is it going to, set up different configurations for different operating systems, kind of like what you do today with Jamf Compliance Editor. So that's the good thing about how different this is. And once again, yeah, definitely go into Jamf account or account.jamf.com and sign up for the feedback program and start getting access to the Jamf Pro beta so that you can start playing around with this new feature. Here's some of the pictures of what it looks like within the Jamf Pro UI in case you have not seen it yet. Yes, it sits right underneath users, and I think blueprints will be above it, but it will be on the left-hand pane as a completely separate object, allowing you to then select which template do I want to start with. And then you take that journey on the top right of starting doing the granular configuration. Which control do I want to set with what ODD values, and how do I go through that process of making sure that I've put this into the framework that our security and compliance teams want, and scope that out. And then you can see on the bottom right that there's a configuration scope that helps you all understand where is it going to go to for which macOS devices. Anything I did not cover, Rocketman team, that I need to cover right now regarding compliance benchmarks?
I think that covers it for me.
Cool.
Yeah, exciting feature that we're really hoping to see soon in the landscape. I know a lot of people are interested in that. So next up, we're going to talk about device compliance for shared devices. So this is just bringing device compliance to shared iPads. The cloud services connection must be enabled. Jamf setup and Jamf reset must be configured for shared device mode and deployed to the end user's devices. And also Microsoft Authenticator must also be deployed to these end users' devices. So lots of requirements for this one. So Matt, I'm going to take it over to you to talk about, like, why are there so many requirements here for this work?
Yeah. So there's a lot going on when you're looking at device compliance for shared devices. Many of you know that we've had a journey. It's conditional access that is now legacy and deprecated. Device compliance has now come along using all of the native features of the new Intune PCM APIs. So when we're doing all of this, one of the things that started coming up for us is many of you have shared iPads that are getting used usually with shift workers. Very prevalent in retail, factories, manufacturing, hospitals, whatever that environment industry is, frontline workers, you will find device compliance needs to be applied to these shared devices. Microsoft had to do some work on their side. They got done. And so this integration now exists in Jamf Pro, where you can state, hey, this is a shared mobile device. And we want to make sure that at the device layer, we are submitting the compliance status back up into Microsoft Intra ID so that at a device layer, we know it's compliant. And in turn, on the Microsoft side, they now understand that the user of this mobile device might not be the static user. Rather, it might change per shift. So therefore, they will need to reevaluate the conditional access rules for each new user that is signing into the device. So now all of this is working correctly for both the Jamf side and the Microsoft side. So pretty cool stuff. We're so thankful given the number of shared devices that are getting managed by Jamf Pro. So pretty cool update that I've seen with this.
Yeah, so quick question for you, Matt. Are the devices going to have to be wiped every time a user logs in and logs out?
Well, yeah. It is recommended that you wipe, and here's why. There's the Jamf setup and the Jamf reset. You see that it must be configured and deployed to a shared device for this process to work. The Jamf reset tool does specifically that new Apple command. It's escaping my mind right now. Tim Knox is going to get on to me, but it's the ability for the device to wipe all of the user partition and all the user data, but keep some of the system level data like the Wi-Fi settings and stuff. And therefore, that's it's basically the user space wipe and not necessarily a full device wipe.
Gotcha. Okay. Moving on to the next slide. I know there's some questions in the chat, but people are asking if the feature you're talking about was return to service.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all.
That's the word. Yeah.
You're a good group.
Yeah.
I'm trying to catch up. There's a lot.
I have learned anytime you say one small mistake, the internet's going to correct you in 5 different ways, especially when you say we're doing an update on 11.3.
Yep.
Rip inbox.
So let's take a look at this inside of Jamf Pro. So if you go to device compliance, there's some differences now. So now you're going to see 3 different checkboxes. And then if you click share devices, you select your compliance groups. So it's nice that you can set this independently of macOS, iOS as well. The next is outbound communication mode for ADCS connector. Now, this is kind of a cool feature. So this is helpful for firewall admins to not have to open up inbound ports for Jamf for the ADCS connector. I probably should explain what this is because maybe not everyone knows. The ADCS connector is I don't know what the acronym is. Active Directory
Certificate Services.
Yeah, I figured it out. But essentially it just connects your Jamf Pro server to your local Active Directory server through the ADCS connector. So it actually runs in the same domain as your certificate authority so that you can send certificates to Jamf through Jamf Pro, even if they're not on your local network. Really cool tool. We use it for a lot of our clients. So this is nice because it just makes it a little bit easier to set up because we don't have to open any inbound ports, which if you know anything about network security people, they do not like to open ports. It still uses the DCOM libraries from Microsoft. Am I saying that right?
DCOM
Yeah,
library.
perfect. Reduces external attack surfaces to the internal network. And then the last thing is if it works today in inbound mode, you don't need to change. And that'll kick it over to Matt. So, we have a lot of clients that are using the ADCS connector now. A lot of them are, large Fortune 500 companies, care a lot about security. So you would recommend that we don't even try to change this if it's working right now.
And the reason why is Yeah, so the reason why is most organizations that have already went through a security review of opening up that firewall port, allowing that Jamf Cloud talk inbound to an ADCS connector, no reason to go through another security review to see what would it look like to turn that off and have everything go outbound. Now, we have absolutely set this up to where ADCS 2.0 can work as an inbound and outbound level connection if you would like. We've tested that out. That works. Also, that ADCS 2.0 outbound feature can work if you've got two different Jamf Pro servers that you need to communicate to, but only one certificate authority or CA. So that
Gotcha.
does work as well. So being aware that reducing the external attack surface, if any of you are just now reviewing ADCS for issuing of certificates, it would be advised even from us for a security purpose, don't go through a security review to see if you can get inbound connections. It is a port you would have to open on a firewall, meaning external. Even though you're controlling what IP address, external IP address, it should be communicating inbound on, is still an attack surface of sorts. So definitely go with outbound if you possibly can. And here we go.
So is this talking about, yeah, I mean, you might need to talk about this because this is talking about the inbound connection.
Correct. This
is this on the outbound port right now? This is the legacy one.
This is the
Gotcha.
legacy setup of ADCS, both the 1.0 and 2.0 in inbound mode, so that Jamf Cloud would be communicating in to your firewall directly to the ADCS connector, which some people put the ADCS connector on the DMZ, or they put it directly inside of the CA's VLAN. However that might be set up, that's usually the legacy format. It was usually the problem for all of us that use Jamf products of trying to tell the firewall administrator that this needed to happen. If you go ahead and click, you'll see our goal is to eliminate that discussion and not have a firewall rule built. Instead, just have ADCS reach out to the internet, in turn, Jamf Cloud, to go and initiate the connection. One of the things that I've already had asked multiple times in various discussions internally at Jamf, how often does that poll? Well, that outbound connection polls every 15 to 30 seconds to Jamf Cloud to see, are there any updates? Do I need to retrieve a new certificate for a device or user? So that's how frequently it happens. So it should be pretty quick to any type of interactions that you would be having for managing your Apple devices.
Is it going to be slower than the inbound connection? Since that was reaching out.
I wouldn't say slower, no. I don't think you and I would be able to see how much slower it would be.
Cool, perfect. And this is an example of setting it up. So if you go to PKI certificates, click New Certificate Authority, Active Directory Certificate Services, fill out this information, the common name for your certificate, fully qualified domain name for your ADCS connector, right? And then you would choose outbound instead of inbound. Now, one question I had as I was viewing this video, Matt, I noticed that you don't need to upload certificates anymore. If it's an outbound connection, is that correct? You don't need to upload the
correct
certificates.
Two reasons for that. One, this is an outbound level connection, which means at the time of the installation of ADCS connector, it's going to retrieve, when you're connecting it to your internal CA authorities, it's going to retrieve your internal CAs because it does have to bind, that server needs to bind to your Active Directory. In turn, it receives internal certificates for internal communication. And given this is a ADCS 2.0 from Jamf, it means that we've already embedded our certificates into the installation so that our outbound is already trusted as well. So you're good on both fronts.
Awesome. That makes the setup a bit easier too. Cool. Next up, we're going to talk about Jamf Protect and Telemetry version 2 with Hugo Immediato.
All right. So what is telemetry? Well, in this instance, right, it's when Jamf Protect collects the system data, log data, any event data that happens on the end user's device or that the end user initiates on the device, right? It sends that to Jamf Protect, which sends it to the SIEM, which ultimately allows you as an IT admin to view that data and use that information however you see fit, right? So you're using this for an overall security posture of your environment. For example, right, you can use JSON parsing, the data sent in JSON format, and then within your SIEM, you can parse that data and you can create an automated network isolation workflow if you have a third-party, piece of software plugged in to your SIEM as well. Those are just one of the little things you can do with the telemetry, but it's a really beautiful thing that Jamf's done. It used to be a little more outdated, but this version 2 is much more robust. And we can go into the next slide, Chris, and I'll hand it over to Matt to talk about why. Why change now?
Yeah, so I wanted to expand a little bit. So Hugo's just done a great job of just what is telemetry. What a lot of organizations do not understand is how often telemetry is used, especially to meet some sort of compliance measurement, whether you're SEC, FTC, you've got COPA, SIPA requirements, or you're just trying to make SOC 2 or ISO requirements. As you dive into certain compliance measurements, you'll see, hey, we need to be obtaining all of these certain security events off of a macOS device and be able to have them on record in case something happens. What if Chris, on his Rocketman Mac, ends up becoming a threat to us all? Because unbeknownst to him, he does have a malware program, but it actually attached to all the customer data at Rocketman, and it started gathering. Would you all have a proper record of what led up to that event? Oh, it would be really good if we understood that 2 hours before the malware started. It was interesting because Chris attempted to use his Touch ID 3 times and it didn't work. And then all of a sudden his password worked. And lo and behold, just 2 minutes after that, a USB thumb drive got inserted into his MacBook Pro. All of that data is leading up to this is what happened at that time of that security event. Telemetry gives you all of that. That's the reason why InfoSec teams love this stuff, because they have a storyboard to look at. Well, on Mac OS, Apple specifically has changed how you gather that information. It used to be OpenBSM, the audit D functions, and doing some type of predicate filtering where, hey, we need to gather this in this type with this type of process with parent ID. Okay, well, Apple's decided, just like they did with unified logging, hey, we need to unify this a little bit better. So we're going to use the endpoint security API built into macOS and use some new functionality within it, especially called ES logging. So that's the reason why we've had to transition the Jamf Protect product for macOS over to a new format. Apple plans on completely getting rid of all these old formats like OpenBSM and Audit D that are now auto-disabled. So now we need to transition, and that's what we've done. We can now gather extremely valuable information for you, but more for your InfoSec team to be able to understand what's happening. Okay, so endpoints. Oh, Hugo, it's you.
Yep. Passing it back over to me. All right. So thank you for that, Matt. Yeah, so it's been updated to leverage Apple's endpoint security API for modern security needs, as Matt was just saying regarding the BSM and whatnot. I just shared, or let me go ahead and I think it's shared. Did I share that link? Yep. So I just shared into the chat our resource link because there is some telemetry documentation I listed there that's really important. It's going to go over the new telemetry categories. it's going to go the event categories and the enhanced integrations, and you have to sign in to use it, right? So you can't actually just Google this information for one of the links. So you'll see the Jamf Protect data model documentation. It's really good, really, really good. If your security team is interested in it, that's what you want to show them. You want to show them the telemetry event categories. When you go into the link that requires you to sign in with your Jamf ID to access, you can actually get more information on these event categories, and that's exactly what your security team is going to want to see. Alongside these enhanced integrations with Splunk and Elastic, it is really important to note that this also supports Google Chronicles, IBM's, Microsoft, Datadog, etc. All these SIEMs can still integrate. But Matt, are you able to speak on the enhanced integrations and why they're separate?
Yeah, we're planning on, by default, you can probably send a JSON object to any SIEM.
Just want to go at once.
Oh, hello,
I don't
Jason.
really want to.
Hello, Jason. Okay, thank you, Jason. So what you'll see is a JSON can be sent to a SIEM or sorter. What we're planning on doing is enhancing how is it auto mapped, like the attributes are auto mapped, just like we do with Sentinel and Splunk today. They're auto mapped. Not a lot of additional configuration is needed by anyone within your org. We plan on doing the same with Elastic and quite a few other ones, the Elk stack, by the way. So yeah, that's what we're planning on doing is auto field mapping, possibly with enhanced dashboards as well.
Well, we're getting a little bit close to the end of our time, so we're going to end this presentation with a quote from the wise words of Eric Pye. Please smash that like and subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. Oh, and if you're watching on Apple Podcasts, please leave a review too. I think we only have like 10 reviews, so like even if you're watching it here on Zoom, just go to find us on Apple Podcast. It's LaunchPad Jamf Admin Podcast. Go there and leave a review. Tell us how cool we are.
I don't know why it's so uncomfortable to watch somebody quote me live when I but yeah, that feels very interesting. Anyways, guys, go ahead and smash that like button. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow. Push this on to all of your friends. We love having you here. Matt, I just want to say, huge thank you and respect to Matt Woodruff for taking the hot seat. Getting thrown to the sharks right after a new release in tech is not for the faint of heart. And you handle it very well, sprinkling truth and what you know and you don't know throughout the chat and on this. So massive thank you for that. I think that's an amazing thing that you did here. Thanks to the rest of our presenters as well from Rocketman. I have the easiest job on all of this. I show up and basically say the same thing every month. Our presenters, not so much. So thank you guys for presenting all that. And then thank you to everyone for joining LaunchPad. If this was your first one, please come back. We try to do the first Friday of every month, unless there's like an obvious holiday getting in the way. We will be posting all of these recordings and then an edited version of the recording on our YouTube channel, which is if you just go to YouTube and throw in Rocketman Tech, you should be able to find our channel. And that's where you can smash that like button and subscribe. And let's see. Also, the follow-up documentation or the blog that we've posted a couple times in the chat. I think if we drop that in there one more time, we'll also post links to the recording in there. If you go to our website at rocketman.tech, you can find the Launchpad section where you can look at what the future meetups are going to be. You can register for those. And I believe March 7th, yeah, because February is one of those months. So I think March 7th is our next meetup at noon Mountain Time. If you want to save that spot on your calendar, I'll be sending out a calendar, or I'll be sending out a registration email. You can register on our website. However you got here today is how you can get there next month. We got a couple different avenues, but March 7th for that, we'll be releasing Rocketman Command Center, much anticipated, super excited. And if I don't stop talking, I'll just keep talking. So with that, we're going to try and answer those questions that are in the Q&A. But thank you everyone so much for coming.
Thank you for joining us today. We have new episodes on the first Friday of every month. If you'd like to join our session live, visit the link in the description to get on our mailing list. And if you're looking to get the most out of your Jamf server, visit rocketman.tech to set up a meeting with one of our Jamf experts. That's rocketman.tech.